day today, and I've been asked to present some recommendations, some thoughts on how we can streamline drug discovery through target identification in Indian context. So I think I'll give you a brief recap what we've discussed in the past 5 days. I hope now, having done this intensive, shall I say, boot camp training, you're more confident in your understanding of cancer biology than it was 5 days ago. Uh, I think what we have been able to do is show you some defects in tumors which actually can be exploited for the therapy of cancer. And I hope I've given you some flavors along with my colleague, uh, co-host running this, or shall I say the host running this, Dr. Aziz. On omics technologies, we touched upon some functional genomics. We discussed some aspects of CRISPR screens, especially I showed you the platform DevMap. Also, we discussed some aspects of preclinical testing, how drugs are tested, and some challenges which I'll discuss if I haven't already. So I think we will all agree there are lots of strength in the Indian academic system with regards to cancer research. The soil is already there. There is, of course, very strong expertise in molecular biology, in immunology area in India, and what you would not perhaps realize how big is this initiative that government actually funds research fellowships. I'm talking about early career research fellowships given to students like junior research fellowship, senior research fellowship, and postdoctoral fellowships. They are uh, highly valuable in terms of providing the training. To give you a context, in British system, there isn't anything like that. Normally, the government provides funding as DTPs or doctoral training programs to the academics, to the faculties. Then they advertise it. Students are selected. So there aren't any students who come here, walk in the lab, and say, "Look, I have my PhD studentship generated through passing a competitive exam." So the system is already very robust. I think this is one of the unique strengths of the Indian system. Certainly, the provision of providing through, of course, competitive exams, which are highly competitive exams, actually, as you all know, providing these research fellowships. And I think there are not very many, but there are sequencing and bioinformatics capabilities in India. They could be, of course, they're developing at the moment. There are increased number of translational initiatives. I can give you one example. Tata Cancer Memorial Cancer Center has some collaborations with us in University of Surrey in the UK, and a collaboration with. So this is a triangular collaboration between us, Surrey, and King's College London. Sometimes we have conferences where we host people coming from Mumbai. So these initiatives are actually quite uh, pivotal in cancer discovery research. Um, and one of the major strength is, you cannot deny that, is the large patient population, and we have diverse genetic backgrounds. This could be a major resource in discovery research, in validation of the clinical findings. And why this is critical, there are lots of cases, and sadly, with every nation on this planet, the cases of cancers are on the rise in India. If we have a system where you can actually longitudinally follow up patients, what happens to their cancer, or in fact, before cancer hits, start early and collect those samples I was mentioning to you, blood samples, urine samples, prospectively to see what happens to these individuals. you can go back and have a look at their samples. Of course, our capabilities to identify biomolecules, metabolites is always on the rise. So we are getting technologically advanced across the world, and that would be quite good because there is certainly a very rich longitudinal follow-up data that you can uh, have access to. Sadly, like many economies, it is an issue with the patient receiving the right care. The drug development costs are enormous. You see, many drugs are, of course, all drugs. These are mostly Western-made drugs, of course, are patented, and that increases substantially the cost to the end user. Many times in countries like India, see government-led health economics, health systems, which actually bear the cost of this, but many times patients are asked to purchase drugs, which are often quite expensive drugs. Not many people can afford it. So if you have local innovation, I think that would be quite good in terms of lessening the dependency on Western made drugs. Uh, of course, there are initiatives to enhance the participation of patients into clinical trials, and this is something that which is getting better in many nations, including India. At the moment, I think what needs to happen is to have biobanks, which are perhaps more scattered. It's very difficult task. Don't think it's only India to have them on a single portal where anyone, any investigator can come and access the tissues. For example, it's a mammoth task. And overall, this problem lastly exists not only in India, but many nations, including UK. Perhaps it's not as much here, but basically there is a lack of providing training where students are trained in wet lab techniques. For example, Western blot skew, PCR, DNA, RNA isolation, for example, but also to be able to analyze any omics data that came from that wet lab exercise. And therefore, there is always a reliant on, even for basic things, basic analysis on clinical trials. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, Dr. Aziz, you were mentioning the other day you lost internet connection. That happens in city of Cambridge in
It
United Kingdom
happened,
as well.
it happened with me today as well.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
It happened with me today as well.
Hello.
Yes.
Sorry, I had to connect to my phone. Okay, thank you. So yeah, Dr. Aziz or anyone else, please jump in to complement this informal lecture session. Uh, you can see my slides again, right?
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay.
In my concluding lecture today, I also talked about a few summaries and
Uh-huh.
recommendations. And one of them was about Aligarh Muslim University contributing more towards cancer research. Plus, yesterday
Sure.
there
Yeah.
were results for the Anusandhan National Research Fund grant came out, and there was a
Hmm.
blood. Very,
Really.
very few people got the grant, and even the review process was not satisfactory. So now we will be getting the full reports. I think this is a
Okay.
worldwide problem about funding, so that's why we need to find alternate ways to find
I, I
how to
think
do
that is a scenario worldwide. There is less funding for biomedical research through public means. Mm. Can you see my slides now?
yes.
So I think why we need indigenous target discovery initiatives in India is also because, of course, given the genetic diversity or genome, actually is not really, you cannot really rely 100% on drugs being developed for Western population to work as efficiently in Indian context. And for an example would be mutations in genes, tumor suppressor genes, such as P53, TP53 differ based on what geographical region you hail from. And that's why it is very important to lead these efforts in India through our indigenous systems. They will, of course, be very affordable compared to drugs being developed by big pharma in the West, and actually can be quite good for Indian health systems as well. Yeah, perhaps we don't realize, but the cost of health system, especially if it is public funded health system, the cost to the economies, to the governments are enormous to bear. Uh, so what I think could be the major challenges, I may be wrong. These are only some ideas, so please feel free to jump in and correct me. Uh, I think one of the things that can happen is the centralization of resources, especially development of data repositories, not to work in silos. That would certainly help the drug discovery efforts if we have platforms like omics platforms in one place. I think, and this number two is not a problem only associated with Indian context, perhaps, but even in the Western countries, it's very difficult to find biologists, especially working in cancer research, to have active, fruitful collaborations with clinicians and computational biologists alike. And that is a big challenge, certainly, in terms of integration of the interdisciplinary approaches. So that's difficult. From what I realized, and as I said again, yes, you have a question, Dr. Aziz?
Yeah, I just wanted to add here that I talked in my previous lecture that this limited interdisciplinary integration can be supplemented, and we have already done it successfully by the consortiums, where you
In fact,
bring
yeah.
together the expertise on one platform. So this can be done. And I learned it from being in the US, where different institutions all across US were coming together to work and address this problem of cancer. So at least we have a solution for this number two, limited interdisciplinary integration. If anybody is interested, we can teach them, we can tell them, we can tutor them, we can mentor them. How many
I think these consortium blood initiatives that you're coordinating, heading, they're certainly very fruitful for this, and I think students should really think about joining them. Uh, from what I understood, the point number three is there may not be very vast exposure to already publicly available data sets to especially students, despite them being publicly available to every investigator across the world. So perhaps that can be something that perhaps we are not very well trained with in India to make use of them. Certainly, that can help if we have any you know satellite meetings or such initiatives. That would certainly help. With regards to grant culture, I don't are there any systems like RO1 system where you can get renewable funding every 5 years based on your performance? uh, that would certainly help. If you know that you have a sustainable funding, it takes time. Even if once you have all the data um, at your desk, it takes time to publish those papers. Preprint is there. Not many people feel comfortable placing their work on preprint servers, but it's still it takes a long time, and unless and until you're sure that you have a secured grant funding, uh, not many people will want to invest in something which is not going to be, let's say, giving you any outputs in the next 5 years. So there has to be some sort of a stream where that there is a sustainable grant funding system to support my research. Um in terms of this number 5 point, I think with regards to animal models, we need to, most of the models, cancer models, cell line models that we use are mostly Caucasian based, especially in US, where, for example, prostate cancer is very common in Afro Americans. We don't have very many popular, freely, or shall I say, readily available cell line models from Afro American populations to be used for studies in cancer research. Uh, Also, as I mentioned, there are skill gaps. If you're a computer, if you're a biologist, you're a biologist. If you're a bioinformatician, many times in Indian context, perhaps the exposure, even in countries like UK, when I speak to my colleagues who are computational biologists, they do get excited with the developments that are being made in biological research. And we ask them questions: how can we look at this on a high level, from a bird eye view? And that's where their role comes in. So sometimes I realize they are not really they know biology, they're interested in biology, but unless they have a biological input, unless we have that complementation, they are incomplete without biologists, and vice versa. So that certainly will help if we can shrink this gap. Uh, what I would also suggest is, of course, to strengthen infrastructure. If we can invest uh, in high throughput screening facilities, where at a fraction of cost, funded by the government, you can get your samples analyzed based on a strong rationale. So the government centrally funds this. Um, Also, what would be important is to do capacity building. That is what Dr. Aziz, through his consortium, is doing. This is one of the excellent examples I have. Of course, don't work in isolation. So if we can break silos, science is not done in isolation unless you are in the industry. You don't really want to disclose your research and compromise, jeopardize the invention. But certainly, as academics, we should certainly have an outreach ability to go and talk to people who we think are like-minded and who will want to complement the research through collaboration. So that certainly helps. And of course, one of the things you can do is to reach out to partners in internationally. That certainly helps. There are people who are very busy. They will tell you, "Sorry, I don't have any bandwidth to collaborate." Others will be more than happy to collaborate. So certainly, being able to reach out to people, and in this world of where you can simply write emails to people, that would certainly help. Um, of course, point number three, development mandate open science practices. This is mandatory in terms of many journal policies. You're publishing something, you will have to provide codes. You need to provide fully the protocols which can allow other investigators to be able to reproduce the results that you have published, for example. And what I would suggest, if you have any DTPs or doctoral training programs, this is something that we can start in India, uh, and especially to focus on cancer research. And in those cases, I think one of the criteria should be to have at least identified some targets in order to receive a successful PhD degree. So that is something that can be integrated in the curricula itself, and that would be certainly very helpful. And in terms of funding, I think the problem we have is that, and this is not an Indian problem, there is no one who would want to fund high risk research. And even if they say, sometimes for high risk research, you don't need preliminary data. But sometimes when you're reviewing such applications and you realize at a later date they have been successful, turns out they have tons of pages of preliminary data. So there is a bias in human nature, I think, where we want to mitigate the risk and make sure we don't really support high risk projects, which often should not have required any preliminary data. But that is certainly not the case. Uh, what I could also suggest is to development, like Dr. Aziz is doing with his consortium, development of a cancer omics portal where you can have Indian cancer genome data, proteome data, for example. There have been some initiatives, I'm sure, in India already to have number two, this screening consortium where several institutes like AMU, uh, where we have few good investigators working on cancer research can actually come together, collaborate with industries and other partners. For example, providers of high throughput screening, and form international consortia. Perhaps this is already happening. I'm not sure. And of course, to develop open source tools. For example, what Dr. Aziz mentioned yesterday about not being able to access IPA for data analysis, omics data analysis. This is quite alarming. To tell you the truth, it won't take more than 4 computational biologists and 1 month of their time to develop such tools, which could be publicly available, similar to uh, these platforms, which you can only access by having a paid subscription. I would certainly think about that, because most of the time we are using for data visualization, we use R in the lab. We have local colleagues who support these, which we collaborate with. So I would certainly think if we can make something which is available to everyone. We already have some tools at the moment. They're not published, therefore I didn't show them, but we already have developed some bioinformatics tools which will be available to everyone. And I think one of the problems I don't see very many industries in India who are very keen to develop, take forward new target discoveries, and uh, work on developing new molecules to target a new cancer target. Mostly they're making generic drugs, and so on. So I think what would be really good is if there are some genuine interest from the pharmaceuticals, Indian farmers, to take initiatives to develop new drugs against the new targets, especially which are more relevant in Indian context. And then for the academics to reach out with them and establish collaborations, certainly through funding from industry. Uh, I think what is important for any research, this is not in particular applicable solely to cancer research or target validation, is to create a more fellowships program. We have a problem in countries like India, where due to limited number of opportunities, there is a lot of brain drain. And if we have attractive fellowship programs that guarantee an academic post, for example, or something equivalent, which can allow to attract academics back in Indian academic ecosystem, then certainly this will help with the acceleration of research. Courses like Gyan are excellent, and thanks to Dr. Aziz for organizing two courses back to back, one on drug discovery and this one here that we are concluding today. These short courses, workshops are certainly going to be very, very helpful in the development of local population capacity building. Uh, and I think with regards to the career tracks for academics, teaching facing academics, research facing academics, for example, myself, I do teach and I do research. Something like that would certainly help, where you can actually pass on the benefits of your research to not only people who are doing PhD postdocs in your lab, but also to the students who are yet to decide. They're doing their masters, their bachelors, they're yet to decide what to do. And if they have their faculties and their teachers teaching them discoveries which are homemade, done in local universities, I think that will certainly feed their enthusiasm. And of course, what we do here during the BSc, many students will do industrial placements. So something like that, where PhD students, at least to start with, uh, can go to an industry for a year, take a year out, and learn how cancer research, screening especially, is done in industry. So what I think, and forgive me please if there is something which is out of line here, but I think for faculties, if we have interdisciplinary teams for grant applications, you certainly enhance the chances of getting funded. Science, as I said, is not done in isolation anymore. It is become certainly highly, highly interdisciplinary. So if you have teams, if the grant funders can see the evidence that you're proposing something which you can deliver through these collaborations, and they have the right experience, then certainly there are more chances to be getting funded than proposing something where you're totally out of your bandwidth. You don't know what you're talking about. How would you achieve this? That would be super difficult. For students, I think what would really help, especially those students who have been very good in mathematics, is to learn coding, programming languages. For example, Python for automation, pipeline studies, development of pipelines for high throughput data analysis, and especially R, which is very important for statistical analysis. I think we should certainly have core facilities. I understand it's very difficult for each university, but at least like-minded universities within a geographical region may have some shared core facilities. Uh, and I think where you can send your samples and do it at a fraction of a cost, including the initial analysis for sequencing, for example, imaging, mass spectrometry for proteomics, and computing capabilities. And then for institutions, it is important that we reward open science and certainly reproducibility, which is a big issue, as you know, in science, in promotion. So this certainly helps with promotions. People will be, academics will be more triggered to do research. They can see the benefits of it. And for policymakers, I think having niche initiatives to promote target identification research to start with such programs would be good. I'm not sure how realistic it is, what I've written, but also we can establish fellowship programs for younger research in target discovery. Um, I think to start with short funding, as I mentioned, 500 crore to start with, start some training boot camps that can also then support development of biobanking, where you can access Indian cancer tissue through tissue microarray biobanks. Then to certainly support the validation of targets using those samples rather than relying on samples from Western countries. You can buy these days tumor microarray chips slides, but mostly from Western nations. Uh, and then certainly that will help, of course, the policymakers to see that will help policymakers to see the develop confidence that actually this research actually does provide good return on the investment, and they will be much more keen to support such initiatives, and perhaps can also help at development of at IND stage, where the patents are filed post preclinical data, and that will certainly help with establishing stronger industry pipelines. These are some of the metrics of success. I think if we have what I did mention, there will be certainly uh, the governments, of course, would want to see what have you validated, what are the reproducible targets, are there targets which actually can be applied to pan cancer initiatives, or there are targets which can be validated across different population, across different human races. And certainly what will help is to get more number of patents based on these discoveries as an output, as a showcase of output from the work, from the investment that the governments do. Publications certainly help, and of course, the number of trainees which have been certified to use a specific platforms that will certainly help. With regards to the clinical translation, I think biomarker-led trials can be initiated within Indian context. And as I said, what would certainly help is based on the discoveries and intense target identification initiatives, if there are more submissions, and then if we can get licenses um, for drugs, worldwide licenses sometimes, that would certainly give a much better, much substantial return than the money invested. And certainly that will attract uh, not just a patent, but certainly something which has been licensed to a pharmaceutical industry, be it national or international, would certainly interest the policymakers to invest more money, of course. And of course, lastly, this equitable access, where we know that there are geographical inhibitions, there are areas which are totally desert, there aren't any top institutions. We should certainly establish institutions in those areas to promote academic research, um, and not just favorably fund certain institutions. And with this, I would stop and take any questions if there are any. Yeah, I'll have a look. Let me check the. Okay, so let me go and take a look from the beginning. Uh, I'm seeing. Uh, I think what I would say, if I understood the question correctly, forgive me, I can't read it, so looks like a long question. But what I would say is certainly there are chances to activate, uh, reports, at least proof of concepts, where you can reactivate tumor suppressors. But that will again depend. How would you want to do it? If there is a genetic loss of tumor suppressors, there is no way to reactivate. If there are any specific point mutations, then certainly molecular docking will help to screen, the in silico computational screening to see basically what sort of molecules will bind and engage probably trigger activation of this tumor suppressor. Certainly, that will help. That's a good thought, Aparna. I don't see any more questions. No problem. Swati, sorry. Are there any more questions? Ilma is saying, please do not mention our grades in the certificate. Yeah, it's totally up to Dr. Aziz. I'm not. I've only provided part of the questions. That's up to him. But I'm sure he's not going to share everyone's marks with everyone, so don't worry. Swati Afsha is saying she hasn't received any uh, link for any test. Okay, all right. Okay, how come I'm not able to see these? Let me check. What time did it come? Okay, the screen. Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, I can see that now. Thank you. Uh, what are the limitations in targeting NTD as a drug, as a drug target? I guess Dr. Qureshi is talking about the androgen receptor. I would say one of the major limitations is that it is one of the proteins which remains amorphous, meaning it does not really fold into a solid, tight, three-dimensional structure, given its intrinsically disordered nature, which is that directed by the amino acids which it is formed of. This is not just with this protein, but many other proteins. Unless it can be something which can be crystallized, it is very difficult to then dock molecules and see what will bind to it. Dr. Qureshi, if that answers your question. There is a question from Dr. Juhi Gupta. Examination link will be shared in chat box. I am not really sure. Thank you. Thank you. Likewise, it was a pleasure to be here and contribute. I can see the thank you, Swati. I can see there are lots of people now for. So the test is starting in 19 minutes,
Yes,
and it is for an hour, right, Dr. Aziz?
yes, it is for an hour. And I would like to personally thank you. And if you want to hang around after the exam, we will be having just some concluding remarks. But it's totally up to you. And we'll be in touch again soon.
Thank you. I'll try definitely to be here for that. So the exam will start in 20 minutes now. If any one of you has any remaining questions, want to switch on your speaker and ask me those questions, please feel free to do that. Thank you, everyone, as well. Swati, is it possible to get some? Is there any that the students and any participant can provide an anonymous feedback on the sessions that we held here today and for the entire week? Happy to have them as anonymous because I think unless they're anonymous, there is little point in getting any feedback from any participant. So is it possible, Swati, to get anonymous feedback or not really? Okay, that's fine. No problem.
Well, in Google Forms, it's not possible because you have to log in with some things. But
I
yes, we
understand.
will
Okay,
not, we'll remove that thing that collecting the email address. We'll not collect the email address. Then it
okay.
can be anonymous on
I
our
think
end.
it would be great because that certainly helps us, Dr. Aziz, myself, to
Mhm.
actually going forward improve and
Yes.
remove any deficiency. So I think we as academics rely a lot on the feedback that we receive, good or bad, equally helpful.
I totally agree and I understand. And I will appreciate if everybody does do their Google Forms for the feedback and they don't have to put their email address.
That's great.
Okay. See some email addresses being typed here. It's for the exam purpose. Azan, we already have these email addresses. Can you just add them and give them access? So we'll shut down the meeting and then we'll allow the only the yes with their registered email IDs that you already have given access to, right? Okay, thank you. Every, okay, if they have not received an email, that's a different story. But they should check those emails that were registered for your for this course. I think everybody has been sent this. Usually, what happens, they log in from some other email and then they have given some other email for the registration. To use the same ID that you have used for registration for checking your emails and for logging in.